So I'm going to start in Lightroom, and the first thing I want to do is pull down the highlights. So just to about like right there, it's at -24. And then I want to bring up the shadows a bit to about 18, 19, somewhere around there. And then I want to bring down the whites a little to about -10. And then the blacks I'm going to bring up to +25. And then I want to pull the saturation down a little bit. I'm going to take it down to like -8. Then in the tone curve panel, I am going to click on the middle just to hold this in place. And then I'm going to bump this up a tiny bit, pull this down a little, and then this very bottom slider I'm going to bring in. Next, I'm going to go to my luminance panel, and I'm going to bring down the reds, bring down the orange, and I'm going to bring down some of that green too. Also the blue. And then purple, I'm going to add to about there. And then I want to go to sharpening, and I just want to sharpen this image to really bring out that detail to about there. Once I've got the basic edits done, I kind of like to warm it up. The reason I do all of this first is I really want to kind of get a feel for how it's all going to look before warming it up. If you prefer a more muted look, you could leave it like this. I like things a little on the warmer side. So I'm going to add some yellow, and I'm going to add a little bit of magenta as well. So I just kind of play with these back and forth until I like the way it looks. All right, next I'm going to bring this into Photoshop and clean up my skin and smooth everything out. So if you right click and hit edit in Photoshop, it will bring it up here. All right, so the first thing I want to do is kind of clean up my skin right here. I'm going to zoom in. And I always like to do this on a new layer in case I screw up so I don't have to start all over. And I'm going to hit J for the patch tool. And I'm basically just circling around areas I want to get rid of and then bringing them into an area that looks fine. I have a little bit of acne scarring here that tends to just look dark in photos, so I like to get rid of that. All right, once I've gotten rid of all that and I'm happy with it, I'm going to go in here through these flyaways and do the same thing. And then I'm going to get a few of these stray pieces. All right, I'm going to zoom back out, and you can see it's just a subtle difference, but looks a little bit more polished and really helped brighten that area up. So I'm just going to go ahead and flatten that. Next, I'm going to duplicate my layer again, and this time I am going to run Portraiture. This is a plugin you can purchase for Photoshop that automatically smooths the skin out. I like to use it because it's really fast and easy, and Makes my life easier. All right, so I already have my settings on smoothing medium. I'm gonna hit OK. And the reason I do this on a second layer is it's gonna make my skin really smooth, and I wanna pull that back a little bit. I just find that having it set on medium looks, and then bringing it back works better for me than doing a lower setting. So I'm gonna bring it down to about 58. So I want to still look human, but I just really want to blur out my skin, any freckles, stuff like that. I'm going to flatten that layer again. And then I want to kind of darken this background in comparison to how I am. It was like midday, so it's not exactly the best time to take photos. I prefer about 2 hours before sunset, but for this particular day, it was the time I had available to do this, so we just made it work and stayed in open shade. But I just want to bring that down a little bit, so I'm going to go down here and hit curves, and then I just want to pull down the shadows, so that bottom slider, I'm going to pull it down to about there. And then in this layer mask box, I'm going to click on that, get my brush tool. I need it set to black at 100%. I'm going to make sure it's a feathered brush. And then I just want to take that off of myself. So I'm just going to erase all of that off of my skin. And one cool tip to kind of make your brush smaller and bigger and go back and forth is to use the, they're not quite parentheses, but like the line, it's under the delete button and next to the straight line. So the left will make it smaller and the right will make it bigger. And I'm just gonna remove this off of my dress. This is another way you could like darken your dress if you felt like it was too bright. But I really want my skin to have proper exposure. Once I've done that, I like to click it off and on and kind of make sure I got all of it. I can see there's a spot right here. So I just do this a few times just to make sure I didn't miss any spots. Then I'm going to make my brush really big, and I'm going to go to 20%, so you can just press the 2 at the top. It'll automatically go to 20. And I'm just going to kind of feather this out. So the purpose of this is I want my eye to be drawn to the subject more and less to all this light in the background. Once that's done, I will kind of check and see if I like it by turning it off and on. Computer's playing catch up. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back and forth and kind of see the difference. You can see I feel like I need to bring the exposure up on my skin a little bit more. So I'm going to do another curves layer. This time I'm going to bring up the midtones, and then I'm going to bring the shadows down just a tiny smidge. And then I'm going to click on this layer box again. This time I'm going to press Command I, and that's going to invert this. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to paint it on instead of taking it off. So I need my brush to be white. And I'm going to start at 20%. And I'm just going to start lightening. I want to kind of, I'm going to move it up to 40, but I want to kind of lighten this front part of my hair and my skin. And not so much the dress. Alright, there you can see it's super subtle, but really just kind of brightened me up. I'm going to hit this side of my glasses to really lighten those just a tiny bit. And then flatten, and that's it. That's all I would do for this one. I will be doing a series of these with different images. If you guys have any requests, please email me. I would love to hear them, and I would be happy to edit your images as well.